Hi guys, welcome back to the Red Eagle. So we have some data to go over today. It is election day, so guys, if you are watching this today, I will be going live at around 6:37 as the results come in from Kentucky, as the results come in from Virginia and New Jersey, as well as the governorship over in Mississippi. So we have some data to get to and some polls. First of all, Trump's approval rating. Its numbers have gone up a little bit over the past week, getting close back to 44, which is roughly where he was. I'm not sure if this is a glitch or just talking about the impeachment thing, or probably going up for him killing the terrorist Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. So that's interesting news, good news for the president. The bleeding has stopped in his approval rating. It has started to go up. It is back to roughly where it was before this whole Ukraine thing took place, but that's beside the point. We have some polls to get to, but before we get to the polls, I have some interesting data. Data out of Kentucky, 30,000 voters identified in terms of attending the rally. 28% of these voters voted once or less in the last 4 elections. 14% of them have never voted before or haven't voted since, I believe, 2000 or 1996. 23% of the rally attendees are Democrat, and nearly 100% are from Kentucky. Now, here's the deal with these numbers. First of all, Trump turned out quite a few voters. In a governorship that can be very close in tonight's race, that's good news for Bevin. We'll see if Bevin wins, because that could be the deciding factor. And most people that go to rallies turn out to vote, or they tell their friends about the rally experience, and they convince other people to vote for the Republican or vote for Trump or whatever. 23% Democrat is good news, because even though Trump got roughly that percentage in Kentucky in 2016, I think that having that volume of Democrats there, the Democrats that may have crossed over and voted for Matt Bevin, the fact that there will be a significant amount of voters that did that, and I know not everyone at the rally is going to vote for Bevin, but I think a lot of people that would go to it would be, so I'm really hopeful in terms of that when it comes for Matt Bevin. As for the Mississippi rally, this gets me the most. Not a whole lot of voters identified, which is understandable. Not as many people are going to be at a rally in Tupelo, Mississippi. It's a very small urban area, urban center of only around 100,000 people if you consider the counties that surround it. 24% voted once or less in last 4 elections. That's not that big of a deal. 12% and 0. Trump's always going to find new voters. It's almost certain that he's going to outperform his vote total, raw vote total, over 2016. I didn't vote for him last time around. As of right now, it looks like I will vote for him in 2020. But 27% Democrat, that's great news for Trump, specifically for the fact that Mississippi might have a decent amount of voters that are there that are leftover Democrats, maybe from the 70s, 80s, 90s, but still registered as a Democrat. 27% registered, and I'm not even sure these numbers are exactly 100% accurate or correct, because a lot of the times they're not. Because I don't understand how they're able to identify all the voters as a party. I'm sure they have a system for it, but some people have similar names and such, and there's a whole lot of confusion. So 27% Democrat, take it with a grain of salt. But it does show maybe he's got a decent amount of crossover support, which brings us to the last bullet point. 20% black. I don't believe that number. I don't think that 1 in 5 voters at the rally were black. Do I think that Trump is doing better with black voters? Yes. Do I think maybe 1 in 10, maybe 1 in 12 even? I think maybe it's a good sign. Only 5% of primary voters in Mississippi in 2016 for the Republicans were black. So the fact that 20% of Republican support, even if it's half of that, it's still good news, and potentially shows that maybe Trump is improving, especially in the black male demographic. But if that number holds up any sort of the truth, even if it's half that number, that's still dangerous for Democrats moving forward, not just in Mississippi, but states like Georgia, North Carolina, in the Rust Belt, where you have a lot of the urban centers that are majority black, at least in the cities like Cleveland or Detroit or Chicago, where you could see, not as much in Chicago because it's in a blue state, but Milwaukee in particular, some of these places that have high black populations, if Republicans are doing just a little bit better with black voters, if they're doubling their vote share over what it was, I don't think that it would be this level. This would be quadrupling the vote share over 2016. in terms of what percent of Republicans or Trump supporters are black. And I know not everybody at the rally is going to go there and support Trump. Some people like to watch the rally, listen to what the president has to say. But especially in Tupelo, where it's not even as black as the state of Mississippi in general, I don't know if I believe that number. I think that the number is getting, I think it's higher than it was in 2016, though. And I think if it's just half of that, it's good news for Republicans moving forward. The shift of the black vote is not an overnight project. That's roughly impossible. But if Trump gets 15% of the black vote in 2020, that's great news for Republicans moving forward. Now, lastly, we have to look at some polls. Polls just came out today out of ABC News, total garbage polling firm. The same people that have Trump at a 35 approval, 60% disapproval, when the aggregate shows an entirely different story that he's roughly at 44-53. But the general election from these polls show him losing to Biden by 17, Warren to 15. If he's losing to Biden by 17 points, he's probably going to lose in a Reagan-esque landslide. I don't see that happening one bit, even close. I think these polls are early. They're a joke, but more interesting polling data here. So we do have interesting data out of New York Times, out of Florida. This is roughly what I would expect. You've got a close race in Florida, Biden doing a little bit better, probably because of name recognition. Not everyone knows about the Biden scandals, but Biden is not doing too well in these places, and that's roughly what I would expect. I would expect a even race with plenty of undecideds. Trump's roughly doing what his approval rating is, but Trump is beating Warren by 4 in Florida. That's roughly around what I would expect. I don't know if Trump's going to do better after his home state change. He might do roughly the same. But you can't, even if you pick a VP from Florida, you don't get the home state advantage thing anymore, which is kind of funny. But out of the state of Wisconsin, Trump is roughly running even. That's roughly what I would expect. Wisconsin's going to be a tough battleground in 2020. I think these polls are relatively accurate, showing maybe Biden's up by 2 there now. Maybe Trump's up by 2 there now to Warren. Warren, a more far-left candidate. Bernie, I don't know why Bernie's doing so well. I guess he's not really been attacked a whole lot. Maybe he's suffering from the Kasich effect where he'll poll better than he really would actually do. As for Pennsylvania, this is interesting. People are always talking about, the polls show Biden up by 13. Well, here's a poll out of New York Times. Hardly a right-leaning, right-skewing poll, showing Biden up by 1 over Trump with plenty of undecideds. Trump's beating Warren and Sanders in Pennsylvania. That's what I would expect. Those people are not going to be good for the industries of coal, oil, the energy sector that is running Western Pennsylvania. I talk about Western Pennsylvania delivering Trump the victory. I can totally understand why that would happen now, in particular. Now, polling out of Nevada, Trump up by 2. Trump up by 2 to Biden and Warren. Again, I think Nevada could flip, but take Nevada polls with a grain of salt. I don't expect it, especially an early poll. Nevada polls always skew Republican, but Nevada actually has been trending in the opposite direction as Arizona. So it is possible that Nevada can flip in 2020 to the Republican column. I think Trump should try to make it flip, make an effort to flip it. The polls roughly show it even. The polls do I don't know if they oversample, but they do skew red. So I do take the polls with a grain of salt, but it's not like it's dead for Republicans. There were plenty of statewide offices that were still held by the Republican Party in the 2018 midterms, and it did vote to the right of the country. So again, I don't think Nevada is done. Out of Michigan, interesting poll here showing Trump up 5 over Warren. I don't think that to be the case. I don't also buy the polls that have him down 8 to Warren. I think both of these polls are kind of ridiculous. I expect it to be somewhere in the middle. I think Trump probably would beat Warren in Michigan. I think with Biden, it would be even closer. I think Biden might be able to narrowly pull it off, but I think with Trump campaigning hard, especially in the rural part of the state, turning out the voters he needs to, carrying my state of Michigan here and running away with it. You see a thing here in North Carolina, Trump beating everyone. That's roughly what I would expect, 2 to 4 point win. Arizona, you see it being very close. I think Trump would do better against Biden than what the polling shows, but Biden would do much better than Sanders and Warren. I see Warren losing by a lean to a likely margin. Sanders might even lose by a safe margin. Sanders is just cancer for the state of Arizona for so many levels. As for the state of Iowa, I think Trump is doing better than he would do in this poll here. Trump is not going to beat Biden by just 1. I think it could be a lean margin. It could be close. I have it at 5 to 7 in Trump's favor. Polling out of Texas, roughly what I would expect in the general. Trump is up 5 to 7 points for what I would expect. Oddly enough, against Castro, Trump is doing the best, which is odd. I guess people just don't know who Castro is because Castro is from Texas. I would expect him to actually outperform some of these candidates in the state of Texas, but the polls show Trump actually outperforming by 6 points against him. But again, he is kind of a joke now. His brother with the doxing thing even pissed off some Democrats who donated to them, who also may have donated to Trump. So I guess it could be stemming from that. But the last poll here, John James, Gary Peters, Emerson, shows Peters up by 6. Now, the polls early out of Emerson for James versus Stabenow in 2018 showed James down 23. So this is good news for James, bad news for Peters. I'm glad that Peters is under 50%. That's the most important thing. A lot of room for improvement for James. I think James is going to carry away a victory. And if you look at the Michigan Emerson polls, it does show that James is outperforming Trump margin-wise. I do expect that to be the case as well. So I do think that Trump is going to narrowly win Michigan by 1. Maybe James is going to win it by even more. But that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like. Please hit the subscribe button. And please hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Thanks everybody for watching, guys. Red Eagle, out.